So what's the plan? What is the plan for the future for Penn State? Well, they would like it to involve either Kalen DeBoer or Lincoln Riley.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into another live show. End of the season finale. The future, the beginning of the future, the start of the future. My name is Seyko. I'm your host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, thank you so much for joining me here. I hope everyone had a fantastic Thanksgiving and a great kickoff to the holiday season. Okay, if you joined me for the previous post-game show, that was to get through an agenda, talk everything that I had to get off of my chest. This is now a fan, commentator, listener, viewer driven show. So we're sit back, relax. We're just talking ball for the next 30 minutes to an hour here. So however you want to take this show, that is the direction we will go in. But we'll talk Penn State's coaching search. We will talk this game. Okay. I mean, Penn State nearly lost to Rutgers as a 2-touchdown favorite, because I already see the comments rolling in. The defense was just terrible. And you know what? And I see the follow-up comment here. One of them, hire Terry, leave Jim Knowles in Jersey with a bus ticket home. It sounds like, at least what I've heard from last indication, that Jim Knowles will be back in Happy Valley next season. Yeah, Penn State. Yeah, Penn State is bowl eligible. Gruden to Penn State. Gruden to South Florida. I've seen more of John Gruden to South Florida than anything to Penn State. And I don't think he'd be a good, ladies and gentlemen. No way it's Kalen DeBoer or Lincoln Riley, not Penn State style at all. That's the latest indications. That, I mean, Penn State's all in on Kalen DeBoer, and Lincoln Riley's kind of that emergency switch. If you don't get Kalen DeBoer, what was the point of this head coaching search? Why do you fire James Franklin in the middle of the season? That's the thing. You have to go down swinging. So now we're seeing the likes of Kalani Sitaki involved, right? What is Penn State's contingency plan? They've called everybody. They've called everybody at this point. Basically, I think any head coach is fair game as long as they don't have an extension. I mean, I've seen that I got a message from my counterpart at Locked On Washington, Locked On Huskies, the other day, because there was some interest, or at least there was a phone call between Jedd Fisch and Penn State. And I know Jedd Fisch is at least keying in on Florida, but if he doesn't get Florida, he would want Penn State, and maybe Penn State would want him if they end up missing on Kalen DeBoer or Lincoln Riley. Kalani Sitaki, that one doesn't make sense to me. That one was a bit of a shocking name to enter the coaching search. But again, no agent is going to say, no, we don't want to talk to Penn State, because as you see, it has all translated into more money, more resources for every head coach that's signed an extension there. Mike Elko, send a thank you card to Pat Kraft. Who else? Eli Drinkwitz, send a gift basket and a thank you card to Pat Kraft. Okay. He would really appreciate it. Right. So it's, as of right now, it's down to Kalen DeBoer, Lincoln Riley. Bob Chesney would still be in the mix, even though people in the UCLA circles are starting to get all excited, because that was their top candidate. That was the top candidate for UCLA. And I don't blame them for wanting a candidate like Bob Chesney. I think that's a good candidate for what Penn State needs right now. You got to go in a different direction. You got to land the big fish. That's Kalen DeBoer. So War Eagle tonight, but things aren't going that well. Oh, okay. Auburn's moving the football. That's good. We want to see that. Auburn's moving the football, but it is 10-0 at Alabama. It is tied between USC and UCLA. Kalen DeBoer's situation is obviously a lot more complicated, because that team is in the middle of a playoff hunt. Lincoln Riley and USC, you can start negotiating now, which is why, okay, USC is not, Lincoln Riley leaving is not totally off. Is he waiting? What is he waiting for? Is he waiting for Lincoln Kiffin or Lincoln Kiffin? Is he waiting for Lane Kiffin? Is Lincoln Riley waiting for Lane Kiffin? I mean, he's the first domino. All signs kind of, I wanted to listen to what the latest was. CBS Sports is reporting that it's down to LSU and Ole Miss, and I don't know that I buy that. I wonder if that's a smokescreen for him waiting out Alabama. Alabama wants him. I don't think Alabama wants to go forward with Kalen DeBoer anymore. They would much prefer, the fans would, if you took a poll right now of every fan, coach, or donor, right? Basically everything that is a part of the Alabama atmosphere, they would, I think 95% would say Lane Kiffin over Kalen DeBoer, anyone else really, other than Nick Saban. Everybody would want to go with Lane Kiffin. See, we got bowl game talk, right? It seems like Penn State's going to go with the bowl game. I thought there'd be a chance that they would opt out just because the roster is going to be totally different. Okay, if you're going with an outside hire, but it seems like Terry Smith has this group motivated. Listen to his post-game press conference. He said he's all on board with the bowl game, and they're excited to see who they're going to play. It could be Penn State versus Pitt in the Pinstripe Bowl. I am all for that. I think that would be, the bowl game coordinators, if you have a Big Ten ACC matchup, because that's how they're decided, they go by conference invite. You have a mandatory invite list. So certain bowls can only invite certain schools, and you need to get an invitation. The Pinstripe Bowl, perfect for Penn State and Pitt. And a fitting way to kind of conclude the Terry Smith run here, because he's not getting there's a 0.0% chance at this point in time that he gets the head coaching job. Did a phenomenal job. I don't like it any more than anybody else that is a supporter of Terry Smith, and I've been a big proponent of Terry Smith. I think he's done an excellent job, but Smith is not getting the full-time head coaching job here. He's off the board, and I wonder, okay, does that mean he's going to leave? Let's see what else we got. So we said no way DeBoer and Riley end up at Penn State. I think Penn State can get one of them. If there's a 180, then they probably go with Bob Chesney. That's what I think it looks like at this point in time. Let's see. We still don't like Jim Knowles. We need a new DC. Jim Knowles, leave him at the hoagie shop. Jim, so I blame today's performance. A lot of it was missed assignments and missed tackling, which has been the staple all season long. They tried to put some more wrinkles of the Jim Knowles defense, because that's what's happening is the missed assignments. Guys are playing out of position. Guys aren't in the right spot. You can call better plays if you're Jim Knowles. You got to make the tackle at the end of the day. And when I see this isn't to pick on Dennis Sutton, but I guess it is, because I'm going to use him as an example here. DDS was just completely taken out of plays from time to time. It's what is Knowles supposed to do in that situation? But they got to stop when they needed one. Okay, so the defense stepped up when they needed to. I thought that was mostly missed assignment, missed spots, missed tackling, right? Tackling a guy in the backfield will solve a lot of issues. Will solve a lot of play calls. Did Knowles make bad play calls from time to time? Yes, but I don't think that was the overarching issue. I think that was probably a third of the situation. The rest of it was probably a third missed assignments, a third missed tackles, and a third Jim Knowles just not calling the right play at that given moment. So we'll talk about this more in the upcoming segment here. Penn State and Pitt in the Pinstripe Bowl. Yes. So we're going to take a quick break. Again, this is a comment-driven show, so let me know your thoughts down in the live chat as we'll talk everything Penn State coaching search, Penn State versus Pitt in the Pinstripe Bowl, and so much more as the college football coaching carousel is going to get crazy. We'll talk about it next year on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to your door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here. And the deals, they are huge. I've received an Omaha Steaks gift before for the holidays, and I'll tell you what, that is something that I look forward to every single holiday season. It's the quality. It's exactly what you hope for in incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, meals that make hosting and weeknight cooking easier, and the variety is underrated. Steaks, burgers, comfort meals, sides, desserts. It's one of those gifts that truly fits for anybody. Honestly, it's the kind of gift that brings people together, right? You can share a meal over Omaha Steaks. So save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during the cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Promo code COLLEGE at checkout for an additional $35 off. omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for full details. I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving, start to the holiday season, start to the future of Penn State football. Let's jump back into the live chat. Really appreciate everyone hanging out with me when there's still college football going on, right? Let's check in on some of these scores again. Auburn is getting into field goal range. They're trying to. They're doing something. They're there. They're playing the game. Rivalry weekend somewhat has not disappointed. I think it's been mostly, other than Texas upsetting Texas A&M, I don't really think there's been anything shocking, so to speak. Maybe I'm forgetting about a game, but UCLA tied. USC seems oddly distracted here right now since it's 7-7. Okay, let's jump back into the comment section, right? This is a listener, viewer, fan-driven show here. Let's see what we got. I'll lose my spot in the comment section from time to time. Here we go. This is a good one to talk about. Lincoln Riley is the LA version of James Franklin, not feeling Lincoln Riley as the potential next head coach. Lincoln Riley, so we completely forget that he succeeded the way he did at Oklahoma? He led them to multiple 4-team college football playoff appearances. I think there is something to be said that Lincoln Riley is going to be a good head coach, or at least he's either comparable at the very minimum, or a step above. I'll say this. It doesn't take Penn State backwards. It certainly does not take Penn State backwards. The guy can recruit. The guy knows how to coach offense. I would say, and most people they are not going to agree with this, but so it's twofold, right? Do you go and get Danton Lynn to bring over as a DC? That's potentially on the table if they don't go with Jim Knowles. But again, the last thing that I heard is that Jim Knowles is going to stick around for another season. So the tandem would be Lincoln Riley offense, Jim Knowles defense. And it sounds bad in the moment, but I am not against the idea at all. I think that can work because this is Jim Knowles' second year. It would be his second year with Penn State. So that's year 2 of the year 3 rebuild, right? And Penn State, Pat Kraft has at least set up the head coach to go and play college football free agency. I'm not worried about the class of 2026. I am more concerned about what Penn State can do with a full budget to go into the transfer portal and turn this team around immediately. I agree with anybody that says that Lincoln Riley isn't a great fit because he's not from the East Coast. He's not from the Mid-Atlantic. He's born and raised in Texas. He went to Texas Tech. He coached at Oklahoma for a little bit. He's been out at USC. The guy, it's not my favorite hire, but it's also not the worst hire in the world. I'm all on board with Kalen DeBoer. It's War Eagle tonight. It's not going that great. But maybe Penn State. Does Penn State, see, this is what's interesting. Does Penn State get this done only if Alabama loses? But the way things stand right now, is it's Kalen DeBoer, then Lincoln Riley, maybe Kalani Sitaki, Bob Chesney. I don't know that I can include Kalani Sitaki. That one doesn't feel real. That one doesn't feel real. That feels like a joke to me. Like people are just trying to be funny with Penn State's coaching search. So it would be DeBoer, Riley, Chesney, not Terry Smith. No Terry Smith. If there are any Terry Smith fans in the chat, that's not going to. You're going to be disappointed. I don't know how you keep him because it's not about money for Smith. I suppose. What are you supposed to do? Offer $10 million to an assistant? Again, Jim Knowles makes over $3 million, so I guess you can offer a lot of money to one assistant coach. However, I just don't see how Terry Smith being the head coach, listening to his post-game presser, it seems like that has there's no momentum there whatsoever with Terry Smith. It's not going to happen with him as the next head coach. But Lincoln Riley is not my favorite hire. He's also, I don't think he takes Penn State backwards because he is a good coach. He is a great recruiter. And I wonder what happens when you give him the full Penn State budget to go build a team through the transfer portal. I think it can work. Kalen DeBoer is definitely my preferred candidate. There's no way he's leaving Alabama to go to PSU, but what if Alabama makes him leave? That is the key detail that we're all missing here. What if Alabama wants him out? What if they want Lane Kiffin instead? I think that's what's getting set up here. Back and forth between the game. No bubbles, no more bubble screens to Trevor Pena, please. But it worked. It worked from time to time. It's not perfect every single time, but it was working. And eventually, see, Alabama's going to score. Okay. Well, this gets a little more complicated now, doesn't it? Trevor Pena and the bubble screens work when they're strategic, right? Let's see. See, these are I like these comments. These are thoughtful. This is good comments to respond to. Please keep these up. We've been courting DeBoer for weeks. There's no reason to believe that he's interested in sticking with Alabama. The fit isn't simply there. I might be an optimist, but I think he's our man. See, okay, that's my belief. We wouldn't be talking about Kalen DeBoer right now if there wasn't legitimate interest, reciprocated interest from some sort. I can tell you this, Penn State's all in on Kalen DeBoer. That's their number one guy. And then a week ago, it was Bob Chesney would be the backup plan, but now the backup plan is supposedly Lincoln Riley. And if anybody's distracted right now, it's not Alabama, it's USC and Lincoln Riley. There's a much wider gap. I would prefer Kalen DeBoer so much more than Lincoln Riley, but again, it's not a bad hire. USC is still in somewhat of a full rebuild, so to speak. That was a program that for the years before, they weren't. I can see why Lincoln Riley would want out, because the idea is that he doesn't have as much control as he would like. There are administrative issues. It's kind of the same thing with Kalen DeBoer. You're not a fit with Alabama. I don't think Lincoln Riley feels like he's a fit with USC. So that's why he's looking to get out. Again, not my favorite hire, but when other names continue to come off of the board and it's okay. I mean, would you prefer James Franklin or Lincoln Riley at that point with where we are? Oh, well, James Franklin beat Lincoln Riley last year, head to head. This is true. This is very true. But I also think that Penn State team was a lot better than where USC was at that point in time. And they nearly blew that game. They nearly lost that game as it was. So in the moment, it seemed like a phenomenal victory. But then that USC team absolutely fell apart. So which is it at the end of the day? That's been an uphill battle and it's not like USC has been the epitome of success, right? I think Lincoln Riley's gotten them back to a spot where they've been respectable. I think everybody wants them to be the counterpart to Oregon, but Oregon's Oregon right now, and USC is at least getting closer. So like I said, not my favorite hire, but it could be worse, right? It could be Matt Rule. It could have been Manny Diaz, for people that say, you know, it could have been Terry Smith. See, I think there's something to be said about somebody who appreciates the university for what it is and doesn't see it as a job. I do appreciate that about Terry Smith, is that it's just an opportunity for him above all else. Yeah, like he just appreciates being in that spot. It's not work to him. It's not a job. He's not doing it for the paycheck. He's doing it because he wants to be there and doesn't want to be anywhere else. All right, we got to take another break, and we'll continue to talk in the live chat. I see all of you are extremely active, so I really appreciate that here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets. That is right. $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So you can head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. And those bonus bets can be used on anything, actually. NBA basketball, NFL football, college football, for any of your favorite sports, you name it. FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. Alabama and Auburn, not looking good. Alabama's up 17 to nothing. So I did get a text from a friend of mine, a mutual, just as far as, you know, college football and everything else. And this is his opinion, but he's saying, you know, is it as a joke or what have you? But crossing off DeBoer. Well, that doesn't make me feel any better now, does it? So then is it Lincoln Riley? We'll see what Penn State's able to do here. So let me pick back up in the live chat here. See all the live comments rolling in. Appreciate it. All right. Answered that one. So, all right. Terry Allen, I imagine you mean Terry Smith, would be a great hire for UConn. Northeast guy and shows he can coach. Just don't think Penn State can go with him. And I understand that to an extent. I really do. I think here's what I will say. Terry Smith is not the best option for Penn State, but he is a better option than people give him credit for. He has proven that under a moment's notice, he can lead a high caliber program. He proved to me that he can be a head coach. Not being Penn State, so be it. And it's not going to be Penn State. It's going to be it's a 0.0% chance. But UConn, yeah, that makes sense. He was rumored to be interested in the Temple job once upon a time because he coached wide receivers there for a season. A program should hire Terry Smith to be the head coach, and then maybe he circles back to Penn State in a future if this doesn't work out, right? I don't know how all this is going to go over the next 5 to 10 years, right? Penn State doesn't want to be in a situation where they are searching for a head coach every so often. Keeping Terry Smith on staff is going to be difficult. I could see him following James Franklin to Virginia Tech. That's probably what ends up happening because it's not, you can't just go from being the head coach and then essentially being demoted at that point in time. Again, Terry Smith doesn't do this for the money. Oh, we'll just give him a pay raise. He doesn't. What does he go back to? And if it's another outside hire, is he going to want to bring Terry Smith on staff? Terry Smith would be better off trying to go to be a head coach somewhere or follow James Franklin of Virginia Tech. And Penn State, you do not want that to happen. You do not want him to go to Virginia Tech. Why do we want to hire a Bama coach who can't even beat Auburn if that was the case, right? Speaking in hypotheticals, because it seems like that's not going so well at that point in time. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about fit, because the question marks about Lincoln Riley, okay, he's not succeeding at USC, but he was succeeding at Oklahoma. Kalen DeBoer was winning at Washington. He took Washington to a national title. The guy's a good coach. If it's any of Lincoln Riley, Kalen DeBoer, or Bob Chesney, my contentment level is going to be different with each of the three. But I think Bob Chesney can succeed at Penn State. It would be a longer rebuild, though. It's not going to be immediate turnaround and immediate success. It will take probably 4 or 5 years for him to start to reach his stride. You can be successful right away with DeBoer or Lincoln Riley. There's no way DeBoer is coming here. Maybe not, but he's Penn State's #1 on the board as of right now. 6-6 regular season. Terry Smith can be happy, but should be frustrated with that awful defense. He did mention that in his post-game press conference. He talked about, he literally said the defense was awful. Downright awful in that game. Chesney isn't in the picture anymore, so stop talking about him. To what I've gathered, he's still on the board. He's not as strong of a candidate here, but he's there. So I will continue to talk about Chesney because that's the fallback plan. Or else Chesney would have been hired as the next head coach over at UCLA. Look how long this has taken. No one cares about this dumpster fire. Well, we care, right? I care. I'll keep devoting episodes to it until it actually happens. Until we actually get to the bottom of this head coaching search. It's been quite the roller coaster. I will say that much. Knowles coached today like he wants to be on the golf course next season. Last thing I heard was that the intention is Knowles is going to coach this season. I know people won't believe me when I say it, but Rutgers is not a bad offensive team. That is not a bad offensive team. That's Kirk Shiraka is a pretty solid offensive coordinator. They got some players that will be in the NFL next year, particularly their wide receivers. Guys are missing assignments. I don't put that entirely on Jim Knowles. So Kiffin's waiting for DeBoer to leave Alabama before making a decision, and he will go to Bama. That's the idea, is that Lane Kiffin, Alabama. Checking on that game again. Not good. Not good. Alabama up 17-0. Although UCLA is, again, looks like somebody's coaching pretty distracted right now in Southern California. That's all I'm going to say. Penn State versus Clemson in the Pinstripe Bowl. You know what? For two teams that disappointed this season, I'd be good with that. That's the perfect, because Penn State and Clemson were that was my semifinals prediction. I thought Penn State would beat Clemson to get to the national title. And I'm not afraid to say that on the record anymore, right? Penn State, it was now or never. It was truly a national title or bust type of season. So what a fitting way to have Penn State and Clemson meet in the Pinstripe Bowl as opposed to the college football playoff. We want Terry. Penn State doesn't want Terry. And that's why we're going to have the situation that we do. Pitt versus Penn State is my bet. Randy, I agree. I agree that it's going to be Penn State and a team from the ACC. Penn State versus Clemson seems possibly more likely. Or does it? So let's think this through. So bowl games aren't for the love of the sport. For anybody that might think that, I don't see in UConn at Yankee Stadium with Penn State, UConn doesn't have a draw, that great of a draw. They're not in a conference. They don't have that strong of a football presence. So bowl games are designed to sell the most tickets, draw the most TV ratings, all that stuff. Penn State versus Clemson, there's not really a draw for Clemson fans to come up to New York City. For Pitt and Penn State, and because it's a Big Ten versus ACC invite, the Pinstripe Bowl, that I would have to go with Penn State and Clemson would be interesting. Penn State versus Pitt would be my prediction. What would I like to see happen? Penn State and Clemson. What I think will happen? Penn State and Pitt. Yeah, see, I agree that Clemson would be a better matchup in the Pinstripe Bowl, but with what the Pinstripe Bowl needs to do to make money and get viewers and butts and seats and eyeballs on the TV, it's going to be Penn State and Pitt. And Pitt also has to accept the so the way the bowls work is you get invitations, and multiple bowls can send you invitations, and it's which one you end up accepting. So Pitt being 8-4 isn't even a guarantee to the Pinstripe Bowl. The Pinstripe Bowl would want Penn State versus Pitt, but does Pitt want to go to the Pinstripe Bowl? I'm not 100% sure about that. Maybe if they know that Penn State's going to be the opponent, then it's a little bit of a different story, because I feel like Pitt would be inclined to decline they would be inclined to decline the other invitations just so they can play Penn State. That's how much they want to play Penn State. I guess I got to respect the fight, right? We all want Terry Smith from an emotional sense, but there's no way Pat Kraft is hiring. No, there's 0%, zero chance. It's not going to happen. That's truly, it truly is about optics. You don't fire James Franklin to hire Terry Smith. And that's literally the reason. When I talked with somebody today, just to kind of like gather all of this, okay, like, hey, where do things stand? Got the update about DeBoer, got it about Lincoln Riley. And then just got to, is Terry Smith, does he even have a chance? I just want to double check here. I know what my gut says, probably not. Like, he has a 0% chance, but where do things actually stand, and why do they actually stand the way they stand? And it is simply because of optics. That maybe it's a little different if he defeats Indiana, but then Penn State should have defeated Indiana. I don't like it. I don't like that it necessarily hinged on one game. Could have beaten Ohio State, could have beaten Iowa in a way. But I do think Terry Smith should have consideration here. He's a better candidate than people are giving him credit for. He is not the best candidate. Both of those things can be true at the same time. The guy doesn't deserve to be handed the head coaching job, but I think he deserves just as much credibility as other people. I think we're just dismissing Terry Smith just because he's the interim head coach. He did a lot to turn this season around. This team could have easily finished 3-9. They finished 6-6, and they're going to go to a bowl game. Okay. Let's see here. I lost my spot in the comment section again, so bear with me. All right. We talked about the Pinstripe Bowl. And yes, it's going to be Lincoln Riley. Auburn is getting beat up bad in the Iron Bowl right now. This is true. Oh, Auburn, just move the football. Just make it interesting somewhat. Just make it somewhat interesting, right? No, I know that the Alabama situation is predicated on Kalen DeBoer losing. Or it's predicated on Alabama losing, because he is not going to leave Alabama just for the sake of leaving Alabama. There's going to be pressure to force him out. So if Alabama wins, they go to, because I don't think Penn State wants to wait anymore. I think they want to get a head coach. And UCLA UCLA's up 10-7 right now against USC. That's bad. Who's worse, UCLA? Well, I don't want to talk smack because Penn State lost to UCLA. All right. Give Rutgers fans credit. Their program stinks, but fans still come out. They have support, right? Greg Schiano. Greg Schiano's a good enough head coach. Did he get the Tennessee job once upon a time? Am I misremembering that? I thought he got offered the Tennessee job at one point, and they basically said no. Am I thinking of somebody else? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Yes, no, I am thinking of that. I was right. He'd be the next head coach at Tennessee, but the Tennessee fans or the board didn't agree with the hire, and they forced him out. Oh, Alabama's up by 17 now, so I'm a little behind in the live chat here. Let's see. No, DeBoer again. DeBoer is he's interested in leaving. Alabama has not been the place between those two. Eventually, even if it's not this season, they might find the first reason to get rid of him. So even if DeBoer wins today, what about tomorrow? What about next season, right? That's what I'm looking at. If he goes 9-3 next season and doesn't do well, they're going to find a way to force him out. So Alabama and Kalen DeBoer are not exactly on the same page. Let's see. What other comments do we have? See, it truly is an emotional situation. My daughter is currently a PSU student. She loves Terry. She's going to be sad to see him go. I don't want it to happen. There's, as a podcast host, I'm supposed to remain neutral here talking about Penn State, but this is a Penn State show, right? You can still feel some type of way about Terry Smith and not wanting him to be a competitor. You want him to be on your team. Yes, Cale Sanderson is showing interest. Oh, rumor has it that there's this guy at Virginia Tech that might be interested in the job. It's true. No, it's not true. PSU is going to force Knowles on a new coach. Who does that? Yeah, that might play a role in some sort of instance. To each their own about Jim Knowles, because Jim Knowles, again, had a bad season this season, but not too long ago, he was revered as the #1 defensive coordinator in all of college football. He was sought after by multiple jobs. He interviewed for Virginia Tech. He interviewed for Oklahoma. This was last season. And it's not about, oh, well, he interviewed at these other schools. It's the fact that he is wanted. Okay. This season didn't go as planned because of personnel and injuries, and obviously, James Franklin getting fired. I'm not going to look at Jim Knowles and judge him on one season. I want to see what happens when you actually get players that fit his system. I want to see what happens when you have year 2 under his system. That's you don't just get formerly the best defensive coordinator in college football and tell him to leave, tell him to go. So it is a little bit of a debatable topic, right? Okay, Auburn's moving the football. Auburn's moving the football here. Well, you have to go for that. You're fourth and goal at the. You don't take field goals in the Iron Bowl. You got to go for touchdowns. Yeah, Nick Saban's a leading candidate. What about Brian Hartline? Brian Hartline's in the middle. Maybe this is all a giant smokescreen, and it's been Brian Hartline all along. At least from this point in time, he's not leaving Ohio State. He's not going to leave Ohio State, alma mater. And if he were to come over to Penn State and be the head coach, would he stay, or would he basically wait out Ryan Day going to the NFL? Because he's not going to leave Ohio State for another coaching job, but there would be the allure of the NFL. So at that point, he's going to retire. He's going to retire at some point. And then Brian Hartline, he might want to be just the head coach in waiting. I'm the offensive coordinator. I got a great setup here with the wide receivers at this point in time. Why would I leave a great situation? And then I'm going to be the head coach of this program later on at some point in time. So Brian Hartline, I don't know that. I think he's completely off the board. And him being in the postseason complicates things. Him being a coordinator in the postseason. Oh, Auburn kicked a field goal. See? We are on the same page that, just to let everybody know, we are on the same page that if and when Alabama wins here against Auburn, that it's going to be, he's not going to leave. He's not going to get pushed out at Alabama. Good point. If Terry Smith was going to be the head coach, Penn State already would have announced it. And Terry Smith's energy, right, seemed a little. He made his statement. He made his case against Nebraska. I thought it was a great case, but it wasn't enough. And it's truly optics. You can't go with the number. I don't agree with the reasoning, but I understand it. I think he's a credible candidate. I could see it working with Terry Smith if you would give him the opportunity, but you can't just hand someone the opportunity for the sake of it. What he does next, to be determined. I don't want to see him go to Virginia Tech. I would rather see him get a head coaching job. So the UConn suggestion is a perfect one. And then see him lead another program and then maybe circle back if it doesn't work out over the next few seasons. That's a different reality, but it's a possibility. It's something that's crossed my mind. Okay, so what would happen? Is it a guarantee that Penn State even does well with anybody of these next few coaches? Because Kalen DeBoer isn't a perfect fit, right? I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm not going to just say, hey, Lincoln Riley checks all these boxes. No, there are question marks here. Kalen DeBoer, no, there are some question marks. People bring up valid points when they say, well, he's not having as much success at Alabama as he should. Well, he's not exactly a fit for Penn State. He doesn't have a lot of ties in the Northeast. I get that. I get those concerns. So it's not a guarantee that any of these coaches elevate you immediately. And maybe Penn State's back in the coaching circuit again, but you don't want that. That's why Penn State isn't saying, well, let's settle for somebody else. No, they're going to try to go after the big fish. So ready to hear the choice. This is getting crazy as the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes. Yes, want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So what's going on social media? Oh, there's the report. There's the report. So kudos to the people that said that Bob Chesney is out. It means that Penn State has told him no. It means that Penn State told Bob Chesney no, because Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports said that Bob Chesney is the top person of interest for the UCLA head coaching job, sources have told CBS Sports. So it is trending that way, because that was the same thing. James Franklin was a person of interest for Virginia Tech. He was the head coach of interest, and then he was hired the next day or a couple of days later. So that means that Penn State told Bob Chesney no, that we're going to be waiting on you, or you're going to be waiting on us. You can't. Okay, let me see here. Zach, you can't honestly say Riley is the emergency backup. Just a day ago, you had 3 to 4 other names, so you're really not sure about that. Things change on a day-to-day basis. Lincoln Riley wasn't even on the list until a couple days ago. Same thing with Kalani Sitaki. That's not my fault. But I get your point. He's the emergency because Kalen DeBoer is not a sure thing. Again, I would circle back to Jed Fish is probably going to be a name that Penn State's going to be tied to if this doesn't go the way it is. This is Find me somebody that will accurately predict any of these coaching searches. Everyone thought that John Summerall was going to end up at Auburn, right? Summerall told them no. He's probably going to go to Florida, maybe. Ole Miss. This is very tough to predict, and it's such a. I'm going off of information that does change on a day-to-day basis. So names are, again, I would have never considered Kalani Sitaki, but apparently there's reciprocated interest from both sides. Outcome of the Bama game does not matter. DeBoer wants out. It's why Kiffin hasn't announced he wants the Bama job. At the latest update on Kiffin's situation, he is still in Oxford, allegedly. He is still in Oxford and meeting with the chancellor at the moment. What keeps him in Ole Miss? What would keep him at Ole Miss at this point in time? More money, more resources. Did he just not want to be at Ole Miss? But Lane Kiffin is going to dictate the coaching market. Any other college football news that I don't want to miss out on? Adam Rittenberg is pointing out how Notre Dame, if USC were to lose, that's going to be a big deal for their resume. Texas or Notre Dame? Who would you put in the college football playoff? That is hilarious in real time on the head coaching markets. That is hilarious. Because Kalen DeBoer is winning right now. Alabama and Auburn are with the way the score is with Alabama and Auburn. Kalen DeBoer has just his odds have completely gone down. I think that is hilarious. People are funny. People are hilarious. Nobody wastes a moment's notice. Auburn's moving the football again. Never say never. So people are saying by Tuesday. It's sometime next week. Yeah. None of this is a guarantee. I'm not here to sit here and say that, it's a guarantee that they get Kalen DeBoer. Here's what I can speak to is that Penn State is very much interested in Kalen DeBoer. Penn State has kicked the tires on somebody like Lincoln Riley, and he has reciprocated interest. Bob Chesney has been told no. So if we're reading the tea leaves here, if it's not Kalen DeBoer, then it's going to be Lincoln Riley. And Penn State feels strongly enough about that to tell Bob Chesney no, because Bob Chesney is not interested in UCLA more than he's interested in Penn State. That's all I'm saying. Since we don't have a direct, tangible report that says, hey, this is what Penn State is doing, we really have to go off, okay, what is this telling us? What are these pieces of evidence telling us? Kalen DeBoer is the top guy. There is interest with Lincoln Riley. And then Bob Chesney is now the leading candidate and presumed to be the next head coach at UCLA. Therefore, Penn State told him no. You might as well not wait anymore. No, I'm not 100% sure that he is number one. I'm fairly confident, though. Do we have other names? Who would Penn State put as their top candidate at this point in time? Sorry about that, Zach. Everything I heard is that Pat soured on Chesney because he felt like he needed to hit a home run. I don't have any insider information, but the predominant feeling was that. No, I get that completely. It's the same thing with Terry Smith. Terry Smith isn't a home run hire. So that's why he's not the next head coach. And if it was, honestly, my preference between, and I've said this on previous show this week, it was either came out Thursday or Friday, Thanksgiving or Friday. I think I said it in both, honestly, to circle back on both topics. I would prefer Terry Smith over Bob Chesney because Smith was the assistant head coach for 5-6 years. He was at Penn State for 12 years. That has more value than what Chesney has done, honestly. He hasn't been coaching, not even in the Power 4 level. I like the potential of Bob Chesney. When he speaks, I'm like, okay, this is a football coach. I think Penn State needs a football coach. They don't need a CEO anymore. They don't need an ambassador anymore. They need a guy who is an X's and O's guy. I'm not looking for a program builder. I'm looking for someone that, as Terry Smith described himself, I'm looking for a leader of men. I think that is undervalued in sports at this point, and it's understandable, especially in college athletics. You don't need a CEO. You can hire a CEO to manage all of that. Get a general manager, get some advisors or some ambassadors to help construct and negotiate. The head coach shouldn't be worried about that. James Franklin wants to be worried about that, though. And I think Penn State realized, okay, that only gets us so far, which is why we're here. Yeah, we're all surprised. Kalani Sitaki is the betting favorite on call. She, no idea why I don't see the fit. If I've always said this, if it doesn't make sense, it's because it doesn't make sense. So don't believe, right? Lincoln Riley to Penn State makes sense because Lincoln Riley and USC, there's always been rumors that that's not an exact fit, and he's kind of looking for a way out. Penn State would be a good job to land at. It's not a perfect fit, but Kalani Sitaki, again, what does he have at BYU, his alma mater, that he could find somewhere else? I think BYU is actually in a very solid position to succeed. They can win the Big 12 every single year, right? It's the same case that people made for James Franklin at Virginia Tech. Well, he can go to the ACC, he can win, he can rebuild a program. I don't know how Sitaki exactly elevates Penn State. Now, he's a really good football coach. The idea is that Penn State can elevate whomever. That if we give you the war chest, how are you going to do? But BYU landed a 5-star quarterback, right? So that's commendable of them. Auburn got a first down, everybody. Great stuff. So if Alabama wins, Chesney is the guy. Things change on a moment's notice. Because I was told before today's game that it's DeBoer, Riley, and then Chesney. And now we get a report 30 minutes ago from CBS saying that, hey, UCLA has zeroed in on Bob Chesney, which means that Penn State has most likely told him no. He was waiting for the Penn State job, but if the Penn State job's not going to wait for him, then so be it. He's going to go somewhere else. He's not going to wait. What's Auburn up to? Auburn's driving. Auburn is driving. Never say never. I'm really behind in the live chat, guys. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize. Yeah, UCLA really wants Chesney. I'm really behind. So people are responding to my comments from about 10 minutes ago. I need to catch up. I need to be quicker with these. We'll go for about another 10, 15 minutes here. We're approaching an hour. Like I said, this was just hey, let's just talk. Let's get some comments, some questions out there. Terry Smith to UCLA. I wouldn't. California, that would be a big jump for him, but I think that would be one of those kinds of caliber of jobs. UConn was a fantastic suggestion. Auburn just scored. It is 17-10. But Auburn scored. DeBoer is never coming here, but Auburn scored. Penn State still needs a recruiter. You can build a recruiting staff. You can get other people to help recruit for you. You want a head coach that still is involved in my preference would be a head coach that does a good amount of recruiting. Like the Deion Sanders method does not work. It's also Colorado, right? Part of it is Deion Sanders is not that great of a college football coach, and Colorado is not that great of an institution. But Deion Sanders does no recruiting. Now, here's who it does work for. We're only in year 2 of it, or we're going into year 2 of it, but Bill Belichick in North Carolina don't seem to have any recruiting issues, do they? Because Bill Belichick doesn't do any recruiting. It is all his staff, and that's by design. You just have to get the head coach right. Let everything else take care of it. See, okay, that is so funny that I mentioned Deion Sanders. I didn't even see this in the comments section. Deion Sanders has to be the top candidate. It's a joke, but that's funny that I mentioned, hey, Deion Sanders, and then I scroll through the comments and it's, oh, we're all on the same page here. We're on the same wavelength. No, Deion Sanders is an okay football coach at best. He's an okay program manager. It's also because Colorado doesn't have an NIL. They are what they are. They're just not that. And that's the thing that frustrates me about college athletics right now is it's gotten to a point where it's so inorganic that it's just the teams with the most money. You will never see Colorado. I guess it's kind of always been that way, especially in football, right? Because you could allegedly, right, you would pay players under the table, right? I get it. I'm not here to debate all of that. But Ohio State is always going to be at the top because they can offer more money to recruits and go get whatever players out of the portal they want. What teams are going to be able to do that on a consistent basis? You would like Penn State wants to be in there, but there still is a financial disadvantage. If it comes down to, again, you offer, let's see, Penn State was losing recruiting battles because their NIL offers just weren't comparable. I can name how many prospects do you want me to name? I don't really want to because I don't really want to rehash that. I can go through, but I think of the Notre Dame battles and Oregon, the mutual recruiting battles, and some of them were just, those schools would just swoop in and say, okay, what is Penn State offering you? $1 million? We'll offer you $1.5 million. And it's and then other schools just aren't even in the conversation. At least Penn State has a seat at the table. At least they're at the dance. But there still is, okay, Penn State's a top 10 financial institution, and that's why they're going with deals like anything you see Penn State doing is strictly for financial purposes. It's to make more money. The Adidas deal is not everyone's on board with it. Oh, because it's Adidas, it looks bad, those kinds of things, right? But it makes Penn State more money. I don't think Adidas is a bad brand. Nike's the cool, trendy brand, so to speak, but what benefits Penn State financially long-term? And that's what all those things are for. So I went on so many different tangents there. I want to go back to, you just need a head coach. You need a good head coach. Do you need a recruiter? At the end of the day, not necessarily. You need a recruiting staff. Bill Belichick's situation is unique to him because he just says, well, I won how many Super Bowls, right? I was a legendary coach in the NFL. I can help send you the NFL. That's North Carolina's situation. So it works for them. But at the end of so for Penn State, you don't need just a recruiter only. Oh, we need an A+ recruiter and a mediocre football coach. I do not want to go in that direction again. I think that Penn State needs an X's and O's guy because you can hire the recruiting staff. It used to be different. This is basically everything changed after COVID. NIL, the transfer portal, all that stuff opened up after COVID. But back in the day, 5-6 years ago that were going on, because COVID was 2020. So I think of 2018, 2019, those seasons when Penn State really started, those were some of Penn State's best teams were 2018, and 2019. At least they were on paper. And I know they made the college football semifinal, but that stretch there were staff limitations. You needed Franklin to do the extra heavy lifting in recruiting because you couldn't have all these, but now you don't really have limits. I don't think there are any limits. The NCAA relaxed a lot of those staffing restrictions. You can have all these analysts. You can have this recruiting staff. You can do this. You can do that. They don't even care if you're basically breaking the unethical rules of NIL. They don't care. So the recruiting staff, you just go build a recruiting staff. It's the same thing with anything else. Oh, well, how's he going to manage a roster? Hire a GM, hire a roster director, hire a GM and an assistant GM. Just do it. whatever your weak spots are, just hire the other thing. See, Auburn didn't even score, so I guess they called that, or they 17-6, but they called that touchdown back. So Penn State doesn't need a recruiting head coach per se. I think they need somebody that knows how to lead a football team and then build the assets around him to succeed, because it's easier to do that than it is to go and get a capable head coach or to find the right guy. Find the right head coach, whatever his weaknesses are, just build around him. General manager, outstanding recruiting staff, all of that stuff. How much NIL money does Oregon get from Nike? All of it. I'm kidding, but maybe I'm not. A lot of it. What if Kiffin stays at Ole Miss? How would that impact the Penn State coaching search? See, these are the kinds of questions that I like. Thank you for that. That's a thoughtful one. Because I haven't really thought about that. I've basically been sitting here thinking, well, Lane Kiffin's going to either LSU or he's waiting on Alabama. So I'm just kind of making sure I'm not missing any updates, because I don't want to comment on something and then everyone will circle back and say, see, you said this about the coaching situation when Lane Kiffin did XYZ. So with what we know in the present, if Lane Kiffin stayed at Ole Miss, I just don't see how they can mend that situation first and foremost. So that's why I'm anticipating that he goes to LSU or waits out Alabama. If he stayed at Ole Miss, well, then it means that LSU is back in the market coach because they think that he's the guy. Him going to Alabama or Ole Miss or staying at Ole Miss almost have the same trickle-down effect, where LSU is going to scramble to find somebody. Florida's going to scramble to find somebody because LSU and Florida are targeting the same candidates. Don't forget, Auburn doesn't have a head coach either. Are they going to go with DJ Durkin? He's the defensive coordinator. All of those schools are kind of battling for different head coaches. I would imagine that, and I don't know that LSU would go for Summerall. I think Florida is going to end it because sources report on top headline on ESPN, Summerall is the favorite to land the Florida job. Okay. If Lane Kiffin stays at Ole Miss, that impacts LSU, and LSU is more of a threat to shake things up in the coaching market than an Ole Miss is. So you would want from a Penn State perspective, Lane Kiffin to land at LSU, or obviously but seeing again, if Kalen DeBoer leaves, then Lane Kiffin would go to Alabama, right? So that's a different set of circumstances. But if you're from the Penn State point of view, you want Lane Kiffin on the move. You want him to move. I finally caught up in the comments section. I know I probably missed a few of them, and I apologize, but Nike NIL money is sort of unlimited, whatever it takes. When it's going to one institution, yeah. And Phil Knight, I want to look up Phil Knight because I don't want to say anything completely incorrectly here, right? I want to be nuanced when I give my takes. But Penn State used to be one of the major Nike schools that the brand deals. I'm not sure where that fell apart. Probably if I had to guess, again, this is my assumption. A lot of this show is very opinion based. I provide facts, knowledge with information with where we know, but it's a lot of it is me giving my opinion about what we know or what we think could happen, right? That's what this show is. If anybody's confused about what this podcast stands for, then, allow me to clear that up, right? It's supposed to be about the opinions, the takes, reacting to what's going on here, right? We're reacting to everything that happens. But I think since Oregon and Penn State are now not rivals, but they have more head-to-head battles, since they go up against one another, the alleged rumors that the reason Penn State wanted out of the Nike deal is due to the fact that Nike was giving them less creative control, and Penn State wanted to do certain things with the uniforms or different promotions, and Nike said, we're good. And Adidas says, not only will we pay you more money for the rights to your uniforms, but we'll give you creative control. We'll give you all that creative control. Oh, well, that's very appealing for Penn State. You absolutely want to do that. And I think that changed because there wasn't a question of that until recently. And what happened recently? Oregon joined the Big Ten. Oregon wasn't a threat to Penn State. Penn State wasn't a threat to Oregon until conference realignment. Because it wasn't like this for the past 10, 11, 12 years. It was like that the past allegedly couple of years. That's how that happened. I believe that Terry Smith should be the next head coach of Penn State. I think he's a qualified candidate, but you don't fire James Franklin I've stated my case for Terry Smith. I would be on board with making it happen. If Kalen, if you missed, see, that's the thing. He's better than people would take him over Matt Rule. People would take him over Manny Diaz. I'd even argue that he has more credibility than Bob Chesney at this point in time, because again, what's specific to Terry Smith? But when it comes to names like Lincoln Riley, Kalen DeBoer, it's tough to say that Terry Smith's a better candidate. I like Terry Smith a ton. I hope he can prove it somewhere else. I would like to see him. Shout out to the commenter that said he should land the UConn job. Not predicting it, suggesting it, that he should go to UConn and win there. Great fit. Outstanding fit. And then again, in an alternate reality where the Penn State coaching search, they're back in the market, right? I want Penn State to figure this out now. I want them to win now, because 6-6 is exhausting. This was not fun. The coaching search, it was entertaining for the wrong reasons, but we are here because Penn State and James Franklin, that relationship had reached its breaking point. This is where I will wrap things up. Good comment. If we don't get either DeBoer or Riley, I hope we get Dayball from the Giants. There's been a lot of talk about him. If we don't get him, Terry gets the gig. Oh man, I didn't even mention Dayball on the show, and I've mentioned him in the past. I don't know that I have the capacity to give my thoughts on Dayball right now. For some people, it works. All right, my 2 cents on Dayball is it's not a terrible hire. Prefer him over Matt Rule. Manny Diaz, right? He's kind of in that second category. I would say he's right next to Terry Smith in that category. He helped develop Josh Allen. There are pros, but would he be able to handle the college football and NIL? Again, that he doesn't have to do that. I just want somebody to coach. And he has an appreciation for the university. He's literally a Penn State dad. So it's not the worst hire in the world, but Penn State's not at that point yet. They are not down on that list, that part of the list, I would hope. The final thing that I will say here, again, we're over an hour. Appreciate everybody checking out the show. Why Penn State is here is because, well, Penn State's going to regret firing James Franklin. You're going to regret it. You'll rue the day. Penn State and James Franklin had maxed out their relationship. The fans did not want, a good portion of the fans did not want James Franklin anymore. They booed him in and out of the stadium. When Penn State, it's one thing, Penn State lost to Oregon and then packed it in against UCLA and Northwestern. Pat Kraft had no choice to fire James Franklin. He had to, because the fans were against him. At least the vocal ones were. The entire stadium was booing him. You gave him everything he asked for within reason. An increase in NIL, go get Jim Knowles, pay Andy Kotelnicki. James Franklin made the decisions to build the roster the way that he did, to hire Jim Knowles and say to Penn State, I need over $3 million to get him away from Ohio State. Let's do this. The season before, go and get Andy Kotelnicki and outbid other schools like Oklahoma Andy Kotelnicki didn't just walk up to Penn State and was the first and only offer. No, there were other schools they had to outbid. The credit card limit was reached. And then you have the fans sour at James Franklin, the donors saying, why am I spending all this money for a 3-3 team at the time? A team that can't even beat, okay, it's Oregon's one thing, but you can't even beat Northwestern and UCLA. What am I doing here? So all that support that James Franklin didn't really have a leg to stand on at that point in time. Pat Kraft had no choice, because then if Pat Kraft doesn't make a change, then they both go down together. If Kraft says, and then there's the alleged rumor, and this has been reported, other people have gone on the record to say, I know for a fact that James Franklin went behind Pat Kraft's back to go and get an extension. That's how we got to this point. So you combine all of that together, Penn State and Pat Kraft really had no choice but to fire James Franklin this season because of that. It was not going to work moving forward. So, well, Penn State's going to struggle. Penn State, they very well might. They might. But I think they were going to struggle one way or another if James Franklin was going to stay. James Franklin wasn't getting back to a national title contender. I did not, over the offseason, I said it daily. That's a daily show. So, but the conversation was national title or bust. And I truly meant it. Because you were never going to get an opportunity better than this. It was either prove it that you can, and if you could, great, but you got your answer. And it was much more than just he can't win the big game. It's, no, you can't come back from any of this. So now, here we are. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, I am incredibly grateful for the opportunity to talk to all of you about Penn State football, to interact with you in the live chat, to share my thoughts, analysis, right, wrong, good, bad, indifferent. I just appreciate it. I really do. And around Thanksgiving, I want to express that more. So thank you for this platform, allowing me to share my thoughts about Penn State football every single day, and more so on Saturdays after games. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast, because we do this daily and we talk more than just Penn State football. We will talk about wrestling. We'll talk about basketball and hockey too, but as you can see, there have been some greater priorities here. Football and wrestling are really taking precedent here, but definitely we'll talk about hockey, basketball, recruiting, everything with this coaching search daily. So subscribe to the YouTube channel wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining me on this live post-game show to talk all things with coaching search. And for more coverage around your favorite Penn State sports teams, keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and War Eagle.